with us while we figure this out.
I was just gonna see if this one picks me up too, so then Kimberly and I can show up.
I can hear you great.
Oh,
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, first one is future agenda items. Do board members have any future agenda item requests?
I have one. I'd like to get an update on the status of Woodville Phase 3. See how the planning's going. I know we were told that in the spring that group would get back together and talk about, you know, if anything needs to be changed. And it was great to get the information on the new high school and how educational ideas were getting built into the plans themselves. And that would be great information to get for Phase 3.
Anything else? Anything else?
I'd like to, if we could add for a discussion item about the kindergarten and kind of what we said about future, not necessarily this year, but future ideas, just to discuss it amongst us.
Sure. I'm going to just ask Larry to give us an update on what is currently happening. That will give you some insight.
Yeah, and
We're having a study session also, some of this tonight.
Highly capable,
Okay.
so at least how that impacts.
that might be part
So
of
the
that
overall
discussion.
picture.
Yeah. Good point.
There is a kindergarten committee that was formed after last year's kindergarten registration to address some of these issues, and they've been talking about it.
Maybe can we get the information about the kindergarten committee out to some folks in Bear Creek that maybe don't know it exists? That would be helpful.
I think it was made up of parents.
Parents, staff, yeah. We tried to spread representation, but definitely focused it in areas that were most impacted. So, is there a request in there that I missed?
Well, who chairs, is there a staff person that chairs that?
That'd be Kathleen.
So, ladies, meet Kathleen Poole. She is the Assistant Superintendent for Elementary Education, and she is the leader of the Kindergarten Task Force. Is that the current title of the group?
No,
Okay.
it's actually a kindergarten parent group,
Okay.
so a little more casual than a task force.
Okay. And her contact information is on the website.
Anything else?
I wasn't really quick about answering questions about, because the citizens were for transparent finance group who meets too long. Have they asked for more information? That wasn't really clear.
I believe there might be one public records request that's still in process.
A couple were
A couple. Yeah.
Oh,
Okay. We're ready to move on to the next agenda item, which is school start times. I don't recall who asked to put this on the agenda,
I
so
think Dawn.
okay. So maybe you can give us some framework of what you were thinking. In the meantime, Kimberly and Amy have had an opportunity to meet with staff and get up to date on what has been discussed previously.
Okay, I originally asked for it to be on the, can you guys hear me?
No.
But that was Sandy's. Okay, hi. Okay. That's kind of better anyway. So I requested this because of the advocacy efforts over the past several years on behalf of parents of kids in the high schools. I would like to see us go to later start times. I realize that there's going to be some cost involved in that, and I think that it's worth it. I think they have studies showing all sorts of things. I just say that because Kimberly really likes to hear what the studies are, which was my question earlier.
I like to know the studies.
And so I believe that it's pretty well documented. I believe that the statements that the parents made this evening were pretty indicative of what it's like to have a high schooler in the high school. I know that my daughter slept through biology, first period, all through her sophomore year, had trouble passing it. So that certainly resonated with me when the parents said that. She comes home and takes a nap. She gets up early, she comes home and has to take a nap every afternoon. So she is in her senior year, and I'm sure she'd say the same thing. I don't mind sleeping through first period. Unfortunately, Mr. Lee, her math teacher, probably does mind it. So I think we should go ahead and do this. So that's why I wanted the conversation started. And I still can.
Look at, I know.
Okay, but get your.
It's better.
And I wanted the conversation started because for the reasons that you did, and at first I want to address that I know there's many different issues and reasons why it's difficult to have a late start time. And so where we have, one group of parents who have their kids in high school who would like it for reasons that are evidence-based, and I myself, as being in counseling psychology and studying adolescents, and I should have come prepared to tell you the studies, but it is, I think we want to make evidence-based decisions in our school district. And I liked what someone had said that, I wrote it down here, because I thought it was a great optimal learning environment. But we do have conflicting things going on in the district that it's not just about, from my understanding and meeting with people on the staff here, it isn't just about the cost of transportation, it's also that we're busing EAP and we're busing, we have after-school buses that would impact other kids and families and their opportunity for an optimal learning environment. So I understand that we have these conflicting issues. There are activity buses that schools have to pay for themselves, that for disadvantaged students and kids that don't have same learning opportunities, that it could adversely impact them. So I know we're trying to balance all of these different things. At the same time, I feel that, or evidence-based wise, to have a 10-minute later starting time at 7:30, I think is answering the need of students that are in high school, that it's not fully addressing it, but I think it begins to address that need of kids needing to sleep in cognitively, their ability to function appropriately, and their brain development. This is the second largest brain development time for children, and I'm not standing on a soapbox saying this. This is the reality. When they're in their 0 to 2 year old formation stage, and this is the second biggest brain development, and this time is incredibly important. That's why kids need 10 hours sleep. They're not going to get it. This isn't going to resolve that, but at least we can step closer to that. And I too had a daughter who, as a parent, not just as a board member, it was very difficult, as I've discussed with everybody here, for her to make that 7:10. I think I want to commend Larry and the staff for moving the time back this year. I know that the bus situation didn't necessarily reflect that for a lot of parents, because we do have parents that are coming from way outside, or children that are coming from far away, and so they do have to ride the buses longer and to get all that organized. So I think that an effort was made this year, and I think that that's great that we're making steps towards that. So I would like to see the 7:30, us to be able to try and move towards that 7:30, and then hopefully, that for now could be a step in the right direction. We could readdress late start when we build a new high school, and maybe our transportation issues are different. And I think that represents a lot of the parents here. I can't say all the parents, but that 7:30 time represents, with the buses moving at the same time. And I know that not every student might be able to have that as their, to move their time back, but if we could get most students. And that does mean maybe we have to reprioritize some of the other activities or programs that we're doing, and I know that's, a difficult thing for us to say.
So for clarification, are you suggesting the entire system is the 10 minutes, like this year's, the entire system is the 10 minutes? as opposed to just the high school moving the 10 minutes and adjusting schedules that way?
Like, my understanding is that we would need to move the entire system, but again, I'm not in that area, I'm not a logistics person, so I can't say that. I do have one of the elementary students, so I do want to let everyone know too that I think it is difficult for elementary parents, because I do have an elementary child who is starting at 9:10, and I do like that, but we do have to take her out of school 5 to 10 minutes early because she goes to Pacific Northwest Ballet. That does not allow you to be late. So, you know, I just want everyone to realize it does impact, you know, when we make one move in one area, it does impact other children in another area. But I still think that the evidence-based decisions support us moving high school students' time back, and how we approach that, I think, is the decision of the staff. And
This is why I
Dawn, I'm
appreciate
gonna-
Kimberly so much.
I'm going to just stop you for a minute and give Amy and Sandy a
okay.
chance
Okay.
to speak as
I
well. So we'll come back.
wanted to
We'll come
clarify
back to you.
that I wasn't talking about a 7:30 start.
Okay. What were you talking about?
That's why I was saying, I wasn't sure we aren't talking about the exact same thing. I
No,
believe that high school needs to start at 8. I think it needs to be
I
closer to
should,
that.
but I don't,
Okay.
yeah.
And I
Okay.
did get that from what you said, so. yeah.
You did.
Thank you. I did. No,
I
I did.
didn't think you did. Okay.
Amy.
Okay, so I'm going to approach this from a slightly different angle. And just to state out front, I'm in favor of the later start time too. And the angle I want to think about this from a different way is hopefully, if we can have our cake and eat it too, perhaps the thing to look at is how we can get creative around how transportation is organized. You know, and as a board member, I would extremely support out-of-the-box thinking. If we need to look into a more up-to-date transportation planning system, if that's an investment that would help us. I mean, another example about the kindergartners that have to ride the bus for an hour. You know, there's several instances, you know, the ability of some junior highs to have activity buses, and how that directly impacts learning. You know, it's nice to think of transportation in its own little bubble because it tends to be funded that way and it tends to be such a logistic piece, but because it impacts learning so much, if it needs a little extra funds, if it needs a new system, if it needs support in any way for the staff to have time to brainstorm a little bit on ways to get creative with it, I think approaching it from that direction, and then I don't have a specific time. I mean, the later the better. I don't think we can move the whole system personally. I'm personally not in favor of having elementary schools. I counted myself on our website, I think it's 7 or 8 that already get out at 3:40. And having so many children getting out 10 minutes later makes me very uncomfortable. But I'm one person, but that's just me. So if we can figure out a way to move high school, I would support resources being devoted towards that, whether it be a capital investment, a system invention, or a system investment. That's me.
And again, I will just say that we're all a little bit jet lagged today, so. I did, yeah. I asked for a little mercy.
Dawn and I were not able to convince the airport that we were not, in fact, a drunk man they were looking for, and they wouldn't let us out last night. So, that's right. We somehow we still had that possibility, so we couldn't leave for a while. You know, this is not the first time that we've had this conversation, and I have never yet heard any board member or staff person advocate for early high school start times. That's been made painfully clear that none of us think it's a grand plan. I too have huge concerns about moving the whole system forward. We have several of our later starting elementary schools are also the schools that host our special needs kiddos, and they're already not getting home till 5:45. So moving them 10 minutes later is not at 10 minutes later dropping them off. They're not getting, because now that's 5 o'clock and they're into traffic time. So not really an optimal learning environment for them to be that much longer on the bus. So I have concerns there. I've also heard us say that with the new high school doing great reconfiguration configuration that pulls a lot of needs for our transportation out of the system, and we'll have much more opportunities at that point. I guess I would be curious as to what programs you would be willing to give up, because I'm not, I'll just go on record, I'm not willing to give up elementary band. I think that's enormously valuable. We heard a lot of that at the conference about the importance of arts and kids being innovative and creative, and I think that's very valuable, so I'm not interested in giving that up. I'm also not interested in giving up busing our ninth graders to the high school, the opportunities that they have for that, and I'm not willing to give those up. So I'm not sure what things that we rely on our transportation for that you are interested in giving up. So I'd be curious to hear what those are. I would need to know what costs are involved with moving to 7:30 before I could advocate for that. That would be important to know, and then what we would have to give up in order to get there.
Give me 1 minute to catch up with you. Yeah, and I was looking back at my pal's notebook, and we have conversations about this going back to 2006 when I first came on the board, and I will state very clearly that I am not a fan of early start times. My own son struggles as well, so and yet when I asked him, I get a similar response to Eileen's son. He says, no, I don't want school to start later, so I don't know. So I have said all along that when we have an opportunity, when we have fewer stresses on the system in 2017, when we are moving our ninth graders up to the high school, and when we are reorganizing the junior high and making it a middle school, that we would have a lot more opportunities than we have right now. I'm also coming from a time when we've had deep budget cuts, so it has been a different conversations over the years. We are in a very different situation now than we were 4 years ago, even 5 years ago. So it's an interesting progression of discussion. We also have more stresses on the system now because of the new requirements for ICAP and E. So it's a challenging conversation. I, like Sandy, value the before school music program. I think that there is research that links math scores and ability with music, exposure to music as well, and the arts. So I'm reluctant to have a discussion about giving that up. The other part of what I have been chewing on internally for the last couple of years is that because there are so many families for whom a later start time doesn't work very well, for a number of reasons that Kimberly mentioned, work, sports, I mean, they choose those things, and I don't like that to drive the system, but that is a reality. I would hate to make any big change before asking parents what they really want, asking the community, and I've been reluctant to ask the community before we have an ability to respond in any way to what the community asks for. So that's the first part. I would love to hear from the community more broadly what they're interested in. But what I've been chewing on is to have options. So to have a 1 through 6 class or a 2 through 7 option to make it more flexible for families to choose. I don't know what that looks like. Obviously it couldn't start before the new high school is built, but those are the kinds of things that I'm thinking about that give more flexibility and meet the needs of more students. But at the same time, that's going to be a bigger transportation cost. So I'm not really sure where to go with this right now, and I'm interested in hearing from board members what your thoughts are on kind of wrapping this discussion up and moving forward. Did you have additional input, Dawn, or was that just the 8 o'clock or later that you wanted me to know?
Yeah, I'd like to see us put an 8 o'clock start time. I'd like to see us spend the money on that and do it. When you guys are talking about the before school music program, I'm not sure why we would lose it. I've heard that before, but I thought we were also receiving some kind of an update on what the staff has been studying about the music program and how its future looks in the district. And I thought it was up in the air a bit.
Do you hear me?
I can.
Okay, thank you. It is one of the topics of conversation that the elementary grade reconfiguration task force will take up. I don't believe they've started that discussion, other than knowing that it's something they're going to have to discuss at some point. But that's one of their charges, is as they look at what elementary programming is going to look like in a K-5 system, in a 6-8 system, do we want to look at doing elementary band and orchestra differently than we do it now? So we don't, it's a conversation yet to occur, but it's one that we know we have to address in the next 3 years as part of our broader conversations about what programming is going to look like in a reconfigured school district.
And I want to clarify why I brought that up. I was not looking at the 2017. It was coming off, Kimberly had indicated that she was willing to give up, in order to get a later high school start time, some of other things that we bus kids for. And so I was just going on record that in the meantime, the two big things that we bus kids for, I'm not willing to give up.
I understand. That helps.
Can I clarify? I don't know if I said that I was willing to give things up. I'm thinking outside the box because this is a discussion. So it's like what I was just saying, that certain things could be impacted. We have all these factors going in. I'm not advocating that we give anything up. I mean, I'm just saying that this is a discussion, so we should, I want to have the discussion, and that means everything's on the table. Doesn't mean I'm cutting band or anything like that, and I agree with the importance of it. I don't know what that going out. Kimberly's cutting band. At the same time, the reason why I said 7:30, to clarify that, is I do agree that 8 o'clock would be our ideal goal. However, I think in the interim, before we have the new high school open, that a compromise to be able to move towards this direction would, and I've talked with several community parents, and that's not representative of all, but that to be able to start this process before we do have the high school reconfiguration. But the reason why I put 7:30 out there is that that might be a potential compromise to get us towards a later start time when the high school. So I'm trying to find kind of a halfway medium where we can get closer. And that also would mean that these kids can sleep in 20 minutes later. And maybe there's exceptions to that.
We have, start time now is 7:20.
20.
Yeah, so.
So that's why I was advocating for somewhere where we're getting closer to that. I realize 8 o'clock probably is not going to happen right now for a host of reasons until we have high school. That doesn't mean I don't want that. I do want that. And so, like Amy, I'd like to know, what would that cost to go to whatever time everybody agrees on? That, I'm proposing 7:30. What would that cost to go to that? What would we have to change? Or would we have to change anything? Can we just move the high school 7:30? I don't know, because I think that's the transportation department's, that's their role, not probably my role to figure it out. I'd like to see something as a proposal.
Which is why I just say 8 o'clock. Let's go ahead and figure it out and see if we can do it and at what cost. And that's why I know that, yes, when you ask the department to do anything, and that's why I enjoy you so much, because you were so sweet and you were trying to come up with a compromise, but it causes its own set. So that's all I think what I'm hearing, though, is a board that would like to see us start later. It's just a board that has different opinions about when we should start later, right?
Dawn, let me ask for clarification from you. What, are you talking about moving the whole system 40 minutes later?
No, high school.
High school. So you are talking about spending
Money.
a lot more in transportation to accomplish that. That's what you're doing. So what I'm hearing is not consensus, but a desire for more information on costs involved. in
Is it possible to request a couple different scenarios and the costs associated? Even from a high level, because there will be, you know, to Janet's point, if we do shift 40 minutes, it will have an impact on sports and all 10 minutes, I don't know so much, but that would probably have its own set of associated costs, but at least from a transportation standpoint, either it seems like 10 minutes or 40. Is that doable?
And unfortunately, WIAA is not on board with an earlier start time, so some of you need to, if that's
Or
what
with an
you
earlier or
want.
a later?
I'm sorry, later, because students are already getting out of school early to go to their sporting activities.
Well, and that would be something
So-
absolutely, I mean, in this request for cost information, just from a transportation standpoint, would, like you said, we'd have to get a feel from the folks who would prefer not to have it, you know, prefer not to have it move later, because I have heard from parents worried about the work and the sport implications, folks who have their kids in Wanik. And so transportation is just a very complicated issue, but I have heard again from Wanik, you know, folks who get transported from Woodinville High School to Bothell, a large bus transporting 2 kids. And so maybe the system in general, now that I'm lucky to be here in a time where the scales are tilting the other way from the state, if we could support the transportation system better, you know, if that's a source of a lot of strain on academic programs.
Yeah, and the ripple effect of that is one of the complications. You know, this is a possibilities conversation, so
Right.
I'm just thinking out loud. But the ripple effect is that when we don't have 100% efficiency as a transportation department, not only are we spending more, but we're getting less.
Right.
So we just want to be aware of that. as
So
well.
could we have a couple different scenarios worked out? And that's originally why I'd asked for a study session, is maybe a study session would be important if we had a couple of different scenarios and then we could
Might be a good way to do it.
talk about, you know, what do these different scenarios look like?
So, yes, I mean, we can certainly work up a couple of different scenarios. What we need to do is define the parameters of what we're asking the scenarios to look like. So what I'm hearing is a 7:30 or an 8 o'clock start time. So as we talked about in our session, the time your first school starts is directly connected to the time your last school dismisses. So if we're saying the parameters are then, we want to not have any schools start before 7:30 and not have any schools dismissed by later than 3:40. Okay.
And I'm not I think I'm open, because this is a possibilities discussion, to seeing what the possibilities are and then coming back and going, that wouldn't work.
Well, we would need to know that because those are going to look very different. So, you know, I'm
Okay, well,
hearing
I think
us-
they're saying they don't want to move the elementary, so that's
Well,
probably.
so what I'm hearing is sort of an option 1 and an option 2. Option 1 being, what if no school started before 7:30 and no schools dismissed later than 3:40? What if no school started before 8 o'clock and no schools dismissed later than 3:40? Is there a third option then? Or is there a willingness by the majority of the board to consider a later dismissal time than 3:40?
I think that's problematic in a lot of ways.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can't do that.
What about 3:45? No.
I think out Woodinville way it becomes extremely bad.
Mhm. And Arrowhead area is a nightmare. Yeah.
So then so that would be one set of parameters. And then the second set of parameters would be, is there a willingness for us to look at scenarios that remove some of the programmatic elements out of our system that we're currently asking our transportation operations to perform, such as the elementary band and orchestra? I'm hearing sort of a no on that. The 9th grade shuttles, I'm hearing a no on that. The EAP and the AAP really are not movable pieces, other than if we redefine those programs somehow not to be how they're currently.
Or if less kids enroll in those because they can be at their home school now.
Well, that's an option that all students are going to have now, and it's just going to depend over time what kinds of choices families make and how that might change the dynamic. But at least to the extent that our service model for highly capable students at elementary is EAP and AAP at junior high, we really don't have the ability to remove those from our system.
Right.
Because that's a basic ed entitlement now of those students. The other factor that plays in our shuttles, so our students that we are allowing to access satellite programs in our district, that's another driver in our system. So I guess what the question is can we play with any of these variables, or is it continue to do all the programmatic things we're currently doing and just fit within these timeframes and model that and see what that looks like?
I think I'm the most open, but that doesn't, I mean, because I think a discussion is what are the possibilities, and then we could say that doesn't work. But yeah, I think band ninth grade, and again, I don't have kids in those, so I can't speak as effectively to those, but I think I hear most parents saying that that's important to them to have those options available.
And, well, if the staff is, and I realize it's kind of stepping up the conversation perhaps a little bit to say, well, what are your thoughts toward elementary music then for the future, if that solves a problem?
I don't even think we've had the conversation to that level yet to really be able to comment on that.
Or have we asked the community about that one, so it's
No, I realize that, but we're just talking, what did you call it?
a possibility.
There you go. So, it's a possibility.
So if it helps, Larry, if, talking about all those programming, I mean, obviously band and the freshman academy, it seems, those services the most kids anyways, but if there are some programs that we currently do that don't service very many kids.
That would likely be the satellite programs.
Right. And I hate to, I think that to follow my scientific method training, the more variables you play with, the less of a outcome you can really say you're talking about. So perhaps keeping the programmatic support constant, it would help us really understand the financial impact. Is that helpful?
Sure.
Okay.
And then just my final comment on that would be, we also need to keep in mind that sort of a parallel system that overlays all of this is our transportation of special needs students, which because of both the regionalized nature of some of our special needs programs, as well as the peculiarities of how our state funds and requires special needs transportation, it sometimes syncs up with our general ed transportation. More often than not, it runs parallel, and so it's just another another set of factors that would need to be in the mix.
For sure.
So, Ryan, I don't mean to put you on the spot, or Doug, but any sense of what a reasonable time frame would be to look at some modeling around a 7:30 and an 8, no later than 3:40 dismissal with no program changes?
Yeah, I think we have most of the data available, so give us about 3 weeks.
Okay.
And I think we can get some draft in front of you if I'm hearing the two scenarios correctly, 7:30 and an 8 p.m., 8 a.m. start.
Is there any other scenario? I mean, is that?
That might be the place to start.
Actually, I just did the 8 out there because it wasn't so good. But 8 is fine.
Yeah, so 7:30 a.m., 8 a.m., no change on the back end.
No later than 3:40 dismissal
Yep,
for any
no later
school.
than 3:40 and
And
no
no
impact.
programmatic modifications.
Except maybe the satellites, is that what you said? No.
And I will put on disclaimer that the board will understand this as a transportation cost view only. Because if we bump 40 minutes, there might be costs in other areas, so I'll say for the record, we understand it's only transportation we're talking about.
What would likely do is not only run a cost estimate, but then also look at what would the programmatic impacts of that would be.
Yeah.
It could influence things like
Field trips.
field trips. I'm thinking perhaps junior high students' access to high school courses, depending on what you ended up doing with the junior high start time
Right.
relative to the high school start time.
Freshman academy.
Freshman academy, right. Those kind of impacts might be in play as
That
well.
would be helpful.
Okay.
Yeah, and it, because of that, because of the freshman academy, which is an enormous number of our students, it seems like the junior high would have to go, I guess, as well, doesn't it? I mean, how can you, they can't attend a whole period at the high school, get back to their own school, and not, and fit in a full day, if we condense that period of time.
If, that's correct. If both
Especially
high
for
school and
the-
junior high start at the same time, right now that differential between high school and junior high, junior high kids go for a period at the high school, that dismisses early, that differential is our transportation window to get them back.
Right.
So if all of a sudden that window disappears, then we're going to be transporting them and they could potentially be missing what could be their second period class essentially at junior high.